Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. May I have attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. Have out the Animal Farm handout. I want to make sure that you guys have everything that is important and relevant with respect to that film, that story, okay? Because last we were here, we were watching that. We got started on that. The rest of it is for you to watch at home. Most of you who had read that book last year in 9th grade know how it played out. But the film, I wanted to point out, had some changes. They had some updates. I mean, they added some weird scenes, like with Pilkington's wife. I mean, like, I don't know, that was weird. And then the ending was completely different. Okay? Chop, chop, Animal Farm. The ending was completely different, which I want to talk to you guys about in here as well. Then I'm going to be giving you some notes. Okay, so old-fashioned notes to kind of fill in from the time of the end of the movie 1917, that documentary, and Animal Farm, where Stalin was in power during the time of World War II and after World War II, and bring it all the way up to that time period where the Soviet Union will collapse. As it appeared in the Animal Farm film version, not the book version, because in the book version, things were still in doubt as to how things were going to ultimately play out. Okay? Just a reminder to you, you guys are coming in here on Tuesday, and I've already gotten some. I think you had yours all filled out and you were going to turn yours in. Okay? This is your predictions. And if I can clearly get from yours as to who, even if you got the addition, not necessarily, did you have it finished? Yeah, you can do recalculate. Even if you don't, if I can tell like who you predicted for each of the different states, then that's good. That's what I'll go with. Okay?
Do you have to color it or no?
You should color it.
Oh, I forgot to do that.
Okay. And some people do it kind of not so exciting. They just sort of shade one of the people. Good grief. I mean, don't you have any Crayolas still in your house? Anyway, but just so do it on the back so you can get kind of an image of like where those states are. And so it's actually a geography exercise. If you don't know where Idaho is on there, then that's just kind of too bad. Shh, let's have it quiet. JT. Obviously, Tuesday is election day. If you turn it in during the class on election day, it's still on time. So I anticipate getting most of these for the blue group on Tuesday. Okay? So turn it on Tuesday. Got it? Question?
So are we predicting that the president or candidate is going to win the popular vote or the actual result?
Look at the form. It's winning the popular vote in each state, which, with the exception of Maine and Nebraska, which divides it up in congressional districts, if you win the popular vote in that state, you get the electoral vote. And then that's where you needed to go through and add up all the different electoral votes to see who actually won. Because can you win as president of the United States by getting the most popular votes spread out across the entire country? No, Hillary Clinton did that 4 years ago. She's not president of the United States. You need to win the electoral vote. That's why it's best if you do That's why it's best if you do the addition and then you can actually calculate it. And if you're doing it on one of the computer models, a lot of those websites that I pointed you to, directed you to, they have a thing so that you just basically do the coloring and so forth. You say who's going to win in every state because they give you like an option to just kind of like do it yourself. It will show you the number, the total number. Perhaps. Okay? We'll find out on Election Day. In fact, we got a lot to talk about next week. I'm sure we'll have some to talk about on Tuesday. Thursday, we'll have a little bit better idea. Hopefully, maybe we will know who the next president that's going to be inaugurated is. By the way, next Friday, there's not school. Parent-teacher conferences. That's going to be a little different this year. This is where, like, if you're getting a D or an F in a class, priority is going to be for your parents and the teachers to have Zoom conferences and so forth. Unlike in the past, say, when we were having the parent-teacher conferences in the cafeteria and parents would just come up, I ended up talking to a lot of parents and students too who were doing quite well. And it was nice and so forth. But because of the unique circumstances this year, there's going to be a real focus and effort to set up the Zoom conferences predominantly with situations where the students really do need to have parents and teachers talk about y'all, if that applies. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so in here, Animal Farm. Go ahead, take out your Animal Farm and let's cover that. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I know. It's really, it actually is kind of annoying because I remember when I watched this film for the first time, it didn't come out too long after Babe, which was a really cool movie set in New Zealand, animals and farm, and Babe was just really a cute pig and everything. This one is rather disturbing. In fact, let's go through this just to make sure you have it. Number 7. I'll take a hand of who has got. Go for it, Michael.
The enemy is anyone with 2 legs.
Good.
4-legged and wing-legged creatures are
Friends. Okay. Yeah, people, some of the students I know, like in the other class, they were like, oh, I know that one. I remember that one from last year and so forth. Right? How many of you guys are like, I remember most of these ones? Keep going. What about the next one?
Animals must not wear clothes.
Good.
Animals must not sleep in
Beds.
bed.
Yep. Okay.
Animals must not drink blood.
Blood. No, it's not blood. What was it? Alcohol. Very good. Keep going.
Animals must not kill animals.
Good.
All animals are
Equal. Okay. Yeah. All right. So then we had Boxer, and that was probably the most disturbing part of the whole story, because Napoleon basically didn't treat Boxer very well. Boxer was what kind of an animal? Number 8. Good. All right. And then they tried to distract, and all of this is going on. It's like we saw that in the movie 1917, where they distract them with what? Movies. Yeah. Things like that. Television. Who got the access? Who had the special treatment? In real life, it was the political party leaders. Here it was the pigs. Very good. All right. Number 11. All right. Here we had an unsuccessful effort, including by the United States, to overthrow communism. And in this story, it's going to be Farmer Pilkington and the others that are going to try and overthrow, but they fail. Who's the military leader of that defense effort? Snowball. Very good. And then, as we saw in the film 1917, there's going to be an effort to industrialize. You need to industrialize. If you're going to fight a war, you need to have the ability to have factories that make weapons. What was the industrial concept and so forth that was going on with that, Megan? What was the thing? Did you get a chance to watch, or you didn't read that? Okay. Did you get it? Okay. What was, everybody else? Almost everybody else. You haven't read the book. You haven't read the book. What was it? The windmill. So they wanted to have like a power generating thing. In the movie, I always thought it looked kind of trashy, but it's like, I didn't make the movie. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, whatever. That was just like a pile of rubbish, but, whatever. The idea is windmill. And so they were, in real Soviet Union, they're building dams, hydroelectric dams all over the place, and they're building factories, even if they're using forced labor to do that. Okay, now, this is also very important. Number 13. Stalin had control, just like in the film. Napoleon, in Animal Farm, had control of the party workers. And using that control could put all enemies at a disadvantage and basically kill them or chase them out of the country. What were the animals in the story that were used to help him gain control? The dogs, yes, exactly. And they were taken, by no surprise, at a very young age and raised by the state so that they would be very loyal and vicious. Okay? Hi, how are you doing? Oh, my. Congratulations. Oh, what a sweet baby. I know we are. I know, we have to trade. Oh my gosh, what are you doing now?
I'm staying home.
Are you? Okay.
We can email us.
With a beautiful baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Email me.
Okay, what is it?
jhansen@northstarcharter.org. Okay. Thank you for sharing. What's his name?
Patrick.
Patrick. You're lovely. Look at those eyes. What a lovely baby. Right. Okay, bye. This is a lovely baby. She was a para here last year. Huh? Oh, right. Yes, thank you. You're still in character. All right, here we go. And of course, yeah, number 14, after the snowball leaves, more or less democracy? Less, okay? And then they start changing the animal commandments. So they change it so the pigs could sleep in beds as long as it had sheets, yeah. As long as it didn't have sheets, right, very good. Okay? And then, of course, what did Napoleon get himself into big time and traded in order to get it? Whiskey, which is alcohol, and so he's violating that commandment as well. Yeah, I mean, he's just like, they change all of the different things. Okay? Terrible. And then who do they blame for all the difficulties? They blame Snowball. They blame the outsiders. It's always blaming the outsiders to say we should be tougher and tougher and tougher. And like, really? The outsiders are trying that hard to overthrow us? Hey, whatever. And then you had the kulaks. Remember that from my documentary, the 1917? And the kulaks were starved to death. What did the kulaks do rather than exchange their goods? The eggs. They smashed them, yeah. They smashed them. And then, of course, what's Napoleon going to do to them? He's going to kill them, right? And then they changed the commandment. So what was the commandment at number 19? Killing animals is forbidden only if there is no cause. Very good. Cause. Okay? And then, of course, you have the drinking alcohol one, which they changed. So you're not supposed to drink alcohol if it is done to excess. E-X-C-E-S-S. Excess. Right? And then this is one of the saddest parts, because Boxer worked real hard, and then, of course, his value to Napoleon at that point is to be sold off to the glue factory, number 21, the glue factory. And then at that point in the story, the way they're telling it, it's like then they escape. In the real story, it kind of ends with them looking in through the window and saying, I can't tell the difference between the pigs and the men. They're all the same. Right? That's how the real story ended. This film version has them escaping, right? Just as the critical words to the commandment, all animals were equal, they changed it to something which was completely bizarre, yes? That was 23. What about 22? All animals, some animals are more. What the heck does more equal mean? That's just weird. You get that sometimes in totalitarian societies where they use words and they twist them around. You're like, just tell me what that's supposed to mean so that I don't say anything stupid so you're going to kill me. Yeah, so it's like the pigs are more equal. In other words, they're preferred. By the way, that's why I wore this tie today for you guys. Yes, exactly. It looks like Squealer. Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, they preserved it. Just like they took Lenin's body. I kid you not. When I went to the Soviet Union in 1985, they had Lenin's tomb, and they had his body preserved inside the tomb. He had died in, 1924? That was, 61 years later? I didn't go see his dead body. I did actually go see Mao's dead body, but that was only 24 years after he was dead, and it hadn't flaked off too badly. It just sort of shrunk a bit. Yeah, he was the communist leader of China. But in the Soviet Union, it's like even after the Soviet Union fell and the communists were out, they were like, what should we do with Lenin's dead body? You know, I think it's still in there. Weird. Question. Oh, it's part of this unit. It's coming up.
How come it never showed how Napoleon got overthrown?
No, it's interesting. That's a good question. All right. So we got number 23, right? So in the story as it's portrayed in the film, which is different from the book, because the book was written in 1945, Stalin, a.k.a. Napoleon in the story, is still in power. In the book, they just sort of inferred that everything sort of crumbled and fell apart because it was not a very good system. In the next video, documentary, I'm going to show you, we'll show why that was the case. You're going to be focusing on that, okay? The quick answer is the economic system didn't work. It was too repressive. It did not produce profit. It created more problems than it was worth. And so everything fell. And so then as a result, where does that leave you? Well, in the film, it kind of leaves you number 24. It kind of leaves you after the fall of Napoleon, after the fall of communism. And that's going to be, probably the official date would be like 1991. This movie was made like 8 years after that. So communism is over in the Soviet Union. What's going to be the answer? Did it end on a positive note? How many of you guys felt like it ended on a positive note? Kind of? How would you say? What is the answer to number 24? Who was then given control, purchased, manor farm, animal farm, whatever you're going to call it, that property? Humans. That's the answer. Humans. And did they look horrible and terrible and mean? They looked nice. They were a smiling, happy couple with 2 kids that were not abusing animals. And so they basically said the message that they hope that these people will do a better job. In other words, they're going to introduce capitalism again into that system, okay? But who's going to be in charge? Is there going to be democracy? Are the animals going to get a vote? No. Who's going to be in charge? Yeah, and so it's actually kind of interesting because the humans are in charge. It's not democracy. When we get to it, when we see the fall of the Soviet Union, guess what's going to be in existence? Capitalism. Yeah, we're going to get capitalism in there. And democracy. Oh my gosh. For really like the first time ever, in the 1990s, after the fall of communism, we're going to have an opportunity for democracy. Will it work? Will it like take deep root in the former Soviet Union, in Russia?
No.
Or is there going to be another singular, all-powerful leader that will gain control of Russia in the year 2000 and is still in power today?
Well, how do you even get it?
I'll tell you. He got through there through democratic means. He got through there through elections and so forth. But as we'll see, and we'll look at that, that'll be kind of the last part of this unit. How was it that democracy and capitalism, but particularly democracy, didn't really take root and succeed in Russia? So that if you go to Russia today, you would go, oh yeah, there's democracy, there's fully competitive elections. I mean, in our country, I don't know what it's going to be like a week from now. I don't know who's going to be elected president. I do know, I'm pretty confident that we're going to get ready for the next election. And whoever gets elected is going to have to do the job. And they can't just go change the rules and bring in the dogs and do all kinds of terrible things that they do in autocratic governments. That would be a horrible thing. Because has that ever happened in the U.S. history? That we just went total dictatorship. You guys could go total dictatorship because you're like, oh, I want dictatorship for happy land. I mean, like, whatever. I don't know if you guys did that, did you? I don't know. Under difficult circumstances. Even with difficulties we're facing today with coronavirus and other kinds of issues and so forth going on, shh. We don't have many people saying, oh yeah, we need a dictatorship. No. But what was the traditional form of government in Russia for generation after generation after generation after generation? Authoritarian rule. Old school monarchy for many, many years. After that, you end up having other authoritarian leaders. Okay? All right. Now, let me hand this out. This is the next one. Go ahead and put your animal farm away. You're going to, a little bit. I've actually got a lot of the notes in front of you on this next handout. Yes, your animal farm is part, your animal farm is part of your notes. Okay, ready? Okay. There you go. Mm-hmm. All right. No, Karen is getting tiresome to me. Karen needs to be quiet. All right, here we go. Take a look at this. 1989, people power. Actually, with respect to the notes that I want you to have, I've basically put it down right here in this preliminary piece of information. So this is going to be fairly easy. You're going to get into these questions. We're going to start the video in class, and you will finish it outside of class. And then the next time we'll come in and we'll take a particular focus on one part of the Soviet Union, little Estonia. And I will tell you the story of how Estonia played a key role. And yes, I do have a slideshow of pictures that I took and some other pictures from my trip to the Soviet Union in 1985. And then I went back there again 5 years later as part of my honeymoon. I got married 30 years ago. Married. And my wife and I went and stayed as part of our honeymoon trip with some friends in the former Soviet, actually it still was the Soviet Union at the time. It's not going to be the former Soviet Union until 1991. So we were there in 1990. So we're going to tell you this, as some of you guys are asking. You going to tell us how you ended communism and stopped the Cold War and da-da-da-da? Yeah. Not how I did, but just a little teeny, 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 tiny bit. It's a good story. All right, so let's get to it. Here we go. In the 1930s, okay? In the 1930s, speaking of rather curious cartoons, just soak it in. Soak it in. This was a cartoonist, I think probably from America or Britain that did this cartoon. Okay? In the 1930s, we had totalitarian dictatorships. You had the German one. This is all squeaky. I don't like the squeaky chair. You are listening quietly as I tell you the information that is in front of you on that piece of paper. Okay, so follow along. I think this is a pretty good preliminary way of introducing the video. Okay, quick question. Hang on just a sec. Let me do the preliminary stuff. So we have two key, well, there's others, but the two very big totalitarian dictatorships in Germany. It's a fascist dictatorship run by the Nazis. That's Hitler. You guys heard of Hitler? Have you heard of Hitler? Morgan, what do you think of Hitler? What do you think of Hitler? He's a murderer. Yeah, he's a bad guy. Okay, what about Stalin? Another murderer. Okay, there we go. All right, focus. Yeah, no. Huh? Yeah, I'm just throwing you guys around. All right, so these two rivals actually, going into World War II, they cooperated. They carved up, it was weird because they made a deal. And so some cartoonists did this thing where you got Hitler and Stalin actually getting married. Like, that's going to happen. I mean, they were ridiculing them. But actually, let's look at the real details here. Okay? After World War I, in Eastern Europe, you had all kinds of new independent countries like Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland. They were new independent countries. Germany wanted to take over big chunks of Poland. So did the Soviets, as well as the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Finland. Stalin wanted those. So they basically made a deal. Hitler and Stalin said, well, you take that, and then I'll take that. Worked out really well for them because were those little small countries able to stop Hitler or Stalin? No. In fact, eventually later, right, this was in 1939, eventually Hitler will try and take over the Soviet Union. That's going to be a big problem. Because when that happens in World War II, oh my gosh, you're going to see a lot of fighting going down. Quick question.
Why does it look like Hitler is trying to buy Stalin?
This is the first phase. This is where they cooperate. And they basically, it's kind of like, let's say, they're not at this stage. In 1939, they're not. It's kind of like, let's say, you two decide that you're going to attack poor Jana here. And so you two attack Jana and defeat Jana. And then, shh. And then 2 years later, one of you attacks the other. One of you attacks the other, and the person who's going to be doing the attacking is going to be Germany in this instance. Germany will attack the Soviet Union. Will they be ready? Here we go. But the Soviets, oh my gosh, they built the windmill. They built enough industry They built enough factories that created enough weapons that in order to fight the Nazis, they had enough weapons, and they were ultimately able, I don't know if I got that on here. Yep, here we go. The Germans come charging into the Soviet Union, almost defeat them. This isn't like, what was it, Napoleon, who took his one army all the way to Moscow? No, this is the Germans attacking along a wide front. And they almost beat the Soviet Union, but they didn't. Stalin is the winner. Because they had built a whole bunch of factories. Take a look at here. This is important. A lot of the factories were built way back here, near the Ural Mountains, or even further east. So even when Hitler's forces took over parts of the Soviet Union, the factories were still free and operating and producing more and more weapons. And those weapons were able to be used ultimately to push the Germans back. You got it? World War II was a huge, huge war. And I've actually had a history professor say basically, with all the fighting that was going on in all places in the world, the place where the fighting was going on most was right here, between the Soviets defending themselves against the Germans. And ultimately, the Germans were defeated completely. Okay? It's not just a winner. It was also because of all the factories that had been built. They made a priority. Orwell would say, build a windmill. Stalin would say, build hydroelectric facilities and railways and factories and all kinds of things in order to produce what you need to actually win a war. And they were able to do it. So that's why some people look and go, did Stalin accomplish what he needed to do for national security? For national security, in that situation, yes. Go ahead.
So on the last picture that you showed, it had a little bit of Finland taken over by the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Is that because they were like in a stalemate at the end of the
Yeah, actually, the Soviets invaded Finland and they failed. I mean, they took over this part. They took over Poland. They actually failed against Finland. The Finns they were tough and they were able to fend off the Soviet assault. Yes?
The other national security and then what's like the inner part?
Domestic security.
Would if they had good
Domestic security under Stalin.
all their factories back here?
Yeah, domestic security just basically means you're not having rioting and so forth and crime going on in the Soviet. No, that's not going to be happening during the time of Stalin. Now, there's not going to be much economic satisfaction, but, you know, it's like their number one priority was to defeat the invasion forces of Hitler. Okay? So let's continue looking at that. With the defeat of Nazi Germany, take a look at this map right here. With the defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945, of course, the United States liberated Western Europe, right? Okay? So France is free, Western Germany is free, Denmark, the Netherlands, and so forth. But the Soviet forces, okay, so we got democracy and capitalism on the western part of Europe, but where the Soviet occupied, they occupied Poland, Eastern Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. Got that? They're going to be completely occupied. There'll be Soviet troops there, and they're going to set up puppet communist dictatorships. Listen carefully. So that really bad stuff you had that was in the Soviet Union as far as lack of freedom, lack of prosperity and opportunity, that is now going to be the situation throughout Eastern Europe. Okay? During the Cold War, 1945, 1989, or 91, the United States and its allies opposed the Soviet Union and its allies in several conflicts throughout the world. Thankfully, nuclear war never took place. But, here we go. Freedom, democracy, and capitalism ultimately prevailed, and the Cold War ceased when the communists fell in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. Okay? Here is one thing. Take a look at this one. This is one of the facts. Take a look at the chart here up on the board, ladies. Okay? This is a very, very important chart that I found that it helps explain, in part, large part, why the Soviet Union failed. Why the Soviet Union lost the Cold War. This shows you the economic success of capitalism versus communism. It shows you the number of years. 1946 on the far left, that's kind of like the beginning of the Cold War, end of World War II. And then right over here, you got the end of the Cold War. Here is the Soviet economy. It grows little by little by little by little. Let me ask you this. Under the Soviet economy, do you get paid more if you're successful? Do you have a profit incentive? Can you set up your own business? No, no, no. In the capitalist United States and our West European allies, can you profit and enjoy the benefits of your profit? If you work harder and you get profit, can you? Well, yeah. So look what happens to a system where you have that profit incentive. It grows and grows and grows. Here, the Soviets own the economy. Here, the United States doesn't own the economy, but through taxes, they can help pay for, get this, more modern military. And that puts a lot of pressure because look at this gap here. When you're talking about modern technology, military technology, who can more easily afford that technology? The United States or the Soviets? United States, yes.
After a while, just like is the U.S. like pure capitalism?
No, but it's a lot more capitalism than certainly other places.
But like, if there were to be, over time, as capitalism goes on, wouldn't the rich start to
Oh, there's all kinds of issues with it as well. Yeah, I mean, you could have some people like becoming more and more and more wealthy. Take a look over there at my poster with the Chinese leaders. That's a communist system as well. That's going to be repressive. You're going to find it's really hard to speak up against the leadership there. Political freedom? No. Religious freedom? No. What about economic freedom? Eventually, yes. Yes. Shh. This guy right in the middle, Mao, the founder of communist China, he was all like, let's do things the Soviet way. The government controls everything. When Mao dies, this man right here, Deng Xiaoping, takes over, and he institutes a new economic system. It involves a lot of capitalism. He basically says, look, capitalism works better as far as helping an economy and a country to be successful. He would say things like, it doesn't matter whether a cat is black or white. As long as it catches mice, it's a good cat. And you're like, what the heck does catching mice by cats have to do with anything? It's a Chinese phrase. It basically says, what matters most is use the economic system that works. So, in China today, can you own a factory? Yes. Do they own factories? Yes. Do they have a lot of capitalism there? Yes. Have they been successful economically over the last 30, 40 years? Yes. What is the largest economy in the world today? China is, depending on what measurement you use, China is about to or has just recently surpassed the American economy. And it wasn't that way back then. Back then, like right in here, the Chinese economy would have been like right around here. Now, once they add capitalism, it's like do, it's going up, 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 up. Got it? Not during the early years of communism in China. Quickly.
What was like the economic the form of government that China had when they were like still good, like in the 1800s, just all that.
Monarchy.
Oh.
Monarchy, yeah. Dead monarchy. All right, last two leaders, the last two main leaders of the United States at this time, Ronald Reagan. Okay, he's going to be putting some pressure on. He's basically going to be saying, like in my Soviet poster right here, the United States needs to have better weapon systems and defense systems, and we're going to pay for it. And the Gorbachev, he's the last Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, he's going to be like, oh no, what are we going to do? Gorbachev, you're going to see this in the film. He's going to start introducing capitalism and democracy and free speech. Oh my gosh, that's a first. Gorbachev is totally different in so many respects from Joseph Stalin. He will be the last of the Soviet leaders. Yes?
So I think it's like China's still behind by about 7.5 trillion.
Depending on which measurement and system you look. But the trajectory is that they will be there.
So 7.05 trillion.
Okay. All right, here we go. one of the key events showing the end of the Cold War is when Gorbachev ultimately says, you know what, we don't need to build a wall or even keep a wall keeping people in our territories. This was the night that the Berlin Wall came down, the one that was separating two parts of Berlin, communist control from the more free controlled area. This was a sign of the end of the Cold War.
Berlin, November 9th, 1989.
Number 1.
East Germans mobbed the border checkpoints that divide communist East Berlin from the West, scarcely believing what they'd heard. That for the first time in 30 years, they may be free to travel to the other side. Colonel Harold Jaeger of the East German Border Guard is faced with a momentous decision.
Ja, kein Befehl. Wir werden los. Du machst du Hilfe. Und auf einmal ist die Situation da. Und suddenly we saw how
Doing that too. Yeah, we'll just do this one now.
Gegen den Willen der Bevölkerung. When the will of the people is stronger than the power of the state, then something is wrong. Muss irgendwas falsch sein. All I could do was
Number 1.
and let the people go.
Let them go. Let them go in. If they tried 2 days before, they would have been shot trying to cross.
The wall marks the final failure of the communist ideal so many had once believed in. For hospital worker Mike Fronell, it's a dream come true.
Number 2.
I wanted to really savor the moment. I looked down, and I took one step, and then another, and I was over it.
Und dann noch ein, und dann war ich dahinter.
I was about that much over the white line, and suddenly it was too much.
Die Mauer,
That wall,
plötzlich,
I had overcome this monster, this snake.
What was the monster, the snake? The Berlin Wall. Very good. Big parties. Knocking down the wall.
The Berlin Wall brings liberation. All over the communist world,
They broke it down. Look, I've even got a little piece.
millions of people have finally
Supposedly. Maybe somebody just took a rock and painted it and stuck it into a plexiglass container and said, that's the Berlin Wall. Yeah. I don't know. I believe it. See? Here's a little bit of the Berlin Wall. If it's got paint on it, it was on the West Berlin side. Little Berlin Wall. It was given to me as a gift.
back in the 1970s, the Soviet system
I hope it's
was
genuine.
power. Each year,
Previous history teacher here,
communists celebrated an ideas
Mrs. Knox, she used to teach here some time ago.
Soviet television interviewed Nina Matova as a hero of socialist labor.
And the rest is on YouTube.